Hello. I wanted to add this as a kind of a PS to the video I gave you about a week ago, where I was talking about the three different types of people, right? The sort of the reciprocators, assholes, and saints, right? But I heard an absolutely perfect example of this today in class, and the student in question said it was cool if I told you about her story as long as I kept her name out of it. So this student, she works in a store, and the store has a policy that if they get any bill, like a $50 or higher, so a $50 bill, $100 bill, if somebody tries to pay with a $50 bill or a $100 bill, they as a matter of store policy, they have to check it to see if it's counterfeit, right? And so and this is just like the policy, and they have cameras on the caches all the time, and if you don't do this, you will get reprimanded. And so she said, she's actually had her own mother come into the store and buy something, and her mom paid with a $50 bill, and she checked her mom's $50 bill to see if it was counterfeit, right? So it's on absolutely everybody. So she had a situation where a woman came into the store this past summer, and she's African Canadian woman, and she said to her, she said, she tried to pay with a $50 bill, and she took it like she does all the time, and she went to go and check and see if it was counterfeit, and the woman immediately got really, really angry at her and said, are you just doing that because I'm black, right? Clearly you are, right? You've got it out for me, and this is racism and stuff like that. And she pulled out her cell phone and started filming her and said, you're doing this because I'm black. And she says, no, I'm not. I promise you, this is store policy. I have to do this with everybody. And she said, well, now you're just gaslighting me because you're just trying to make me feel like I'm paranoid and that I'm crazy and stuff like that. And I thought this was such an amazing kind of illustration of what Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff talk about in the Coddling of the American Mind, right? The way in which there are certain ways of seeing the world which, if you cultivate them and you encourage them, they cause you to sort of go into situations with interpreting things in the worst possible way, from the most uncharitable perspective possible, right? So that you are kind of expecting the worst of people, right? Now, when the student said this to me, what I immediately responded with, a couple of things. First thing I thought of is we have a dep at the corner of our street, a corner store. We go there all the time. That's where we go to get milk, bread, beer, wine, butter, onions, potatoes. If you're cooking and you're missing an ingredient, you can just go to the corner store and pick it up, right? We go there all the time. We've been going there for years. We know the owners very, very well, and they trust us, implicitly, so much so that if I go in there and I grab $50, $60 worth of stuff, and then I reach for my wallet and realize I left my wallet back at the house, they'll just give me the bag and say, pay me tomorrow for the stuff, right? So they trust me implicitly, my wife, my kids implicitly, no problem whatsoever. However, I thought it was very interesting, and I told this to the young woman in my class. I said, there have been 2 times in the last month where I've paid with a $50 bill at the dep, and on both occasions, the woman who owns the dep, she just automatically took the $50 bill and she put it under the scanner to see if it was counterfeit, right? So a lot of store, and she's not doing this because she thinks I'm shady I mean, both times the $50 bill was legit, but she wasn't doing that because she doesn't trust me. I mean, in many ways, she's demonstrated that they completely 100%. This is just a matter of procedure. They just always check because there have been some problems with counterfeit currency going around. And so they just automatically check all large bills, right? It's not, but it occurred to me when she was telling me the story that if I was rather than being a middle-aged white guy, right? If I was like, I don't know, if I looked like I was homeless, or if I had a mohawk, if I looked like I was like a squeegee punk and I was like a junkie or something like that, or if I was a member of a visible minority group, if I looked indigenous, if I looked native, if I was black, if I was if I was someone other than who I am, and I was used to people kind of treating me with suspicion, and people being kind of shitty with me, and people kind of like expecting the worst from me and being mistrustful of me. If that were the case, then when my dep owner, when she like went and checked my $50 bill to see, I might have I might have come to the same conclusion that this young woman had when she was at my student's cash. I might have thought, oh, you're doing that because of who I am, right? Because of how I look and your assumptions about me. And this just strikes me as just one of the many ways in which racism and prejudice just create these really, really bad situations. It's like, I think Brett Weinstein, he has that wonderful line. He says, bad faith ruins everything, right? It's just so true, right? So if you have like this bad faith situation where, for a number of reasons, because you have been habitually treated with disrespect and with suspicion, and so that causes you to sort of be defensive and on guard and kind of expecting the worst from people, right? And that kind of hypervigilance makes you sort of on the lookout for any kind of microaggressions or any signs of disrespect, or right. And what that means, unfortunately, is you probably are going to get a lot of false positives. And so you're going to interpret a lot of things as, let's say, racism or homophobia or classism or sexism or Quebec bashing or like Anglo bashing or whatever, or anti-Semitism. Like if you're in that kind of hyper-vigilant state where you're just always on the lookout for offense, you're going to get a lot of false positives. And I don't see any easy way out of that problem. I find that like actually very sad. I think the way out of it is that we have to actually try and create a more just and equitable society, and that over time, hopefully, a lot of these things will get better. But in the meantime, I think that teaching young people, or teaching people in general, to be really on the lookout for microaggressions all the time, and teaching people to be like hypervigilant, I don't think that's gonna help anything. I don't think that's the root of the problem. The root of the problem is unfortunately much more kind of deeply rooted than that. Like I don't think people talking about the problem creates the problem. The problem is there, but I think there are ways in which we're talking about the problem. Like, for instance, the whole language and kind of ideology of microaggressions, for instance, which just makes the problem much, much worse, right? So you're encouraging people to go into every social situation, to go into every pharmacy or corner store, just waiting with a hair trigger for people to do something that can be interpreted as an act of some kind of oppression or disrespect, right? So I think probably a better way of doing it would be to maybe hold back and try and actually see if you can find evidence to support your uncharitable interpretation. So I'll give you an example of this, which is something that I heard from my wife a little while ago. So she had a student who went into a store and they had a help wanted sign in the window. I think it was like a Gap or something like that. And she went into the store, and she's African Canadian as well, black. She went to the store and she wanted to ask for a job, an application, right? Because they had a help wanted sign in the window. So she went in and they asked her, how old are you? And she said like 16, right? And they said, don't bother applying. We don't accept anybody who's under 18. So she thought, that's weird, because usually to work in a retail clothing store, you just have to be 16, in Montreal. You just have to be 16. So she thought, well, that's sort of weird. So she thought, maybe this is racism. Maybe this is because I'm black that this guy's telling me this, right? So as she's walking out of the store, she asked one of the employees, this white girl who looked like about her age and was kind of just folding sweaters or something, whatever you do at fucking Gap. And she asked her, she's like, how old are you? And she said 16, right? Well, at that point, right, she had an assumption about what was going on, that this was racism. And she did a little bit of research, right? And she sort of got some evidence to back this up and came to the conclusion, oh yeah, this completely was prejudice on her part. And then she did something about it, and let's just say she got some justice and a job. But I think that's a far more intelligent way of dealing with it than just sort of assuming that you absolutely know that anytime something bad happens to you, it's because of a category membership that you are a part of. And then when somebody says to you, as my student said to this woman, look, we have to check all large bills. This is not because of you. Rather than actually looking into that, which wouldn't have been too hard to do, could have found a way to look into that. Not that hard. Rather than looking into that, saying to this person, oh, you're gaslighting me, right? This is why I said to you in a previous video that I think the whole notion of gaslighting is, obviously gaslighting is a thing. That's what's so frustrating about a lot of these things. It is a real thing. Gaslighting is a thing. However, the problem with gaslighting is that it's like talking to somebody who's into QAnon or conspiracy theories. It's an airtight circular argument, right? So every attempt is like convicting somebody of witchcraft, right? There's once you've been accused of being a witch, there's no way to get off, right? It's like if you admit that you're a witch, then we're going to kill you. If you deny that you're a witch, well, then we'll torture you like crazy. And if you manage to get all the way to the end, we'll be like, oh wow, that's either she's a really good witch or, well, she died innocent, So there's no way for the accused witch to prove the accusers wrong, right? And likewise, if you create, with the concept of gaslighting, if you create these airtight systems where every attempt to prove to you that I'm not homophobic or sexist or anti-Christian or anti-Muslim or whatever, anything, or any attempt for me to prove to you that I don't have this animus towards this particular group is actually just further proof of how bad I am, right? That is just a recipe for just so much badness, right? There's got to be ways for people to actually verify claims and charges, right? So if gaslighting, I don't think helps things very, very much at all. But anyhow, that is my, I would say 2 cents, but I guess it's better to say that is my $50 bill. All right, take care. Bye.